Thank you all for attending today. I'm Brian Hazzard. I'm Senior Director of Product Marketing over at Mansfield Energy. And we are here to talk a little bit today about your emergency fuel plan. If you guys need headphones due to the restroom noise, go ahead and throw those on. We'll go ahead and kick this off. I am Brian Hazzard, as I said. I run the less than truckload as well as the emergency response program at Mansfield Energy. For those of you that don't know what less than truckload is in the fuel space, it effectively means smaller straight trucks that hold about 5,000 gallons of product. It's about max capacity. I also head up our emergency response program, which is really why I'm here to talk to you folks today. Give you a little bit of color around how we can help put some redundancy in your business and effectively provide you some insurance. So we'll kick this off with a little bit about Mansfield and who we are. Outside of emergency work, we are a nationwide fuel company that operates in all 50 states as well as all 10 Canadian provinces. So we are all North American wide. We are a family-owned business, third generation, that's been around since 1957. So we have grown this business to handle pretty much any fuel need you could possibly have in the space. So from LTL to full truckload business to diesel exhaust fluid to price risk management, additives, lubricants, you name it, we got it. We like to think that we're a one-stop shop for our customers so that when you come to us with any fuel management need, we have you covered. From industries that we serve over there on the right, obviously you can see there's not really an industry we don't touch. There's some that we're heavier in than others, but we're pretty much across the entire landscape of any fuel users in the North American region. A little bit more about us, just to kind of give you a look into the depth of our supply and our carrier network. We have access across the nation to 900 fuel supply points. 119 DEF supply points, and then we have access to about 400,000 different price indices and price changes on a day-to-day basis. So however you want to get your fuel billed, whether it's Opus, DTN, Platts, whatever index you need it on, we've certainly got that feed running through our doors every single day. From a distribution side, we are mainly a brokerage business, so we partner with local carriers in the local markets to deliver on our behalf and service our customers. So on the full truckload side, we have about 900 transport partners, and on the less than truckload side, we have about 600 partners, and then about 140 of those partners do what we call mobile refueling. So mobile refueling is when we come onto your yard at night and we will actually dispense fuel directly into your company vehicles. So that when your drivers come in the morning, they are 100% fueled up, ready to go, do not have to visit a retail station, don't have to go to a backyard tank. It cuts all the labor out of it for you, which saves you time and money. We do about 9.5 million gallons of product throughput daily. And we service that to about 8,000 commercial, industrial, and municipal customers. So the real reason we're here is to talk the emergency response side of our business. So looking back at 2024, it was a doozy of a hurricane season, right? We had a couple big ones back to back, but overall 11 hurricanes, 18 named, 5 major, and then about $222 billion in damages last year. So obviously a costly one for the economy, for all the local businesses, mainly around the southeast, right? Florida up through the Carolinas. Mostly with Helene and Milton that were back to back there about 2 weeks apart. So I always like to share this. Sometimes we have amnesia between one hurricane season and the next. So I always like to do a little bit of a recap, right? So that we all refresh our memories because we are within 100 days of the next hurricane season hitting. Yay. It's all about being prepared. It's about having the right business continuity plan and ensuring that you've got redundancy in your operations for when the grid goes down, for when there's flooding, what have you, and the fuel supply in your local market is no longer available, that you've got a backup option, right? So to continue that talk track, obviously, the storms that came through Florida last year, this is specifically focusing on Milton, right? Shut down over 2,000 gas stations that had run out of fuel to dispense to customers. Well, that's a problem for everybody. Even if your business doesn't pull fuel from the retail station, I bet your employees do. I bet you that's how they get to work, right? that's a pretty big issue for you, right? If your employees can't come to work to perform the operations, then you can't run your business. And so even though that may not seem like it directly affects you, it certainly does. Another stat here, just kind of back in Ida in 2021, which is a hurricane that hit, the Gulf Coast, that shut down about 95% of oil production at that point in time for multiple days. Well, that has a ripple effect through our industry, right? So those guys are pumping out fuel every single day, refined products through the pipelines, getting to the fuel terminals that's then being delivered to the end users. And, excuse me, if obviously that shuts down, the supply dwindles over time, right? So it's a ripple effect for many weeks, if not months, after that happens. Just trying to kind of tie this all together for you. This little chart here on the bottom right is basically a correlation from the bar chart to the line graph. The bar is a disruption in production versus the category of the storm, right? So the higher the bar, the higher the category of the storm, or the higher the line, the higher the category of the storm, and the higher the bar, the more production is affected. So you can see it's not always a direct correlation, but they're absolutely tied together. So then power loss. I'm not going to go, there's a bunch of stats here I'll let you guys kind of read through, but really what I want to get across on this one is that there's 12 million generators out in the field today, right? And it's growing exponentially year over year. And most of that, I would say, is in the data center space, right? Data centers are putting in hundreds of generators on their campuses that burn immense amount of fuel, sometimes up to 1.5 million gallons in a 24-hour period to support a data center at full load. So the point I'm trying to make is all of that requires our industry, our trucks and drivers, to beef up, right? To be able to handle that increased capacity at a moment's notice. And the only way we can do that, and the only way we can do it for your businesses, is if you have some sort of preset plan around how you're going to get those trucks and drivers, where they're going to come from, and where the fuel is going to come from. So I thought this was pretty interesting that 60% of power failures result in a $100,000 loss, and that's up from 39% just a couple years ago. So it's certainly continuing to be more and more costly. So what I'm going to talk about today is what I like to think of as an insurance policy for you. It comes with a monthly premium, right? It's going to come with cost without service, because you need to be prepared and you need to have trucks on standby and drivers on call and fuel supply at the ready in order to be prepared in a storm. So let's kind of dive into, actually I got one more here. It's also not just weather, right? We've got infrastructure issues, right? So pipeline leaks, pipeline hacks. Does anybody remember the Colonial hack that happened many years ago? The Colonial pipeline runs from Houston to New York. And when that thing shuts down, it basically cripples the Southeast and the Northeast. So equipment failures, grid disruption, planned outages, right, for whatever, the load is too high during the summer heat months, or out in California, you've got the PSPS outages for wind so that it doesn't start a forest fire. So there's all kinds of reasons to be prepared to this. Not to mention the Texas grid and what we've all seen happen over the last couple of winter storms where it's crippled that area, right? And everybody's had to go to backup power. So that brings us to the business continuity plan, right? How can we help you beef up your business continuity plan to ensure that you guys are safe throughout a storm? Mansfield takes a fairly simplistic approach to this. And it's kind of built on 3 pillars, right? In order to get fuel to your site, you need the fuel, you need a truck, and you need a driver to drive that truck, right? And in the heat of the moment in a storm, we all love our local carriers. I use the local carriers just as many of you do, but unfortunately, they're crippled by the same storm that you're crippled by, right? Their families are going through the same thing that your families are going through. So relying on only your local carriers to support you in the event of a hurricane or any natural disaster is a big risk, right? They may be operational, but they may not, right? That hurricane may have come in and wiped out their yard, flooded their trucks, and they're not operational. Maybe they don't have backup power at their facility, and so they're out from a communication standpoint. Their systems are down. So what we like to do is we actually bring in trucks and drivers, and we retain these trucks and drivers on your behalf from outside the affected area. So for a Florida storm, I may be bringing trucks down from New York. I may be bringing trucks down from Chicago. I may be taking them from Indiana, Oklahoma, some place that is far enough away from the affected area that nobody's at risk, that truck won't be operational, won't be able to go, right? And again, we're going to set that up by setting up a monthly retainer fee that you pay in order to keep that truck at your beck and call 24/7, 365, right? The minute you call us and say, hey, I need my truck, I need it down here, we got the hurricane coming in, we're going to get that truck rolling immediately. We're going to fill it with fuel, so we're going to bring you supply from outside the affected area to get you an initial start. Because we all know that the minute after the hurricane blows through, the terminals are still doing cleanup, the local carriers can't load, and even if you can, the lines are probably 4 to 6 hours long to get that fuel on the truck. So we're going to come down with a truck and driver already loaded, ready to start dispensing the moment it hits your yard. So on top of that, on top of the trucks and the drivers, obviously, we have the ability to put strategic fuel supply in inventory in markets for you. So that way, if the local market is on allocation or the suppliers are running dry on product or they're not getting their resupply from the barges, whatever may happen in any scenario, we've already got fuel inventory that's been sitting in tank for you, ready to go, right? So at any point, you can call in that fuel, right, and make sure that you've got access to that 100,000 gallons or however many barrels we end up putting on lock for you. That is kind of the next step in redundancy. We can even put that fuel outside of the affected markets. So let's say we put it, up in Georgia, and that way we long haul truck back and forth so that we don't have to wait in those terminal lines down in Tampa after the hurricane hits, right, that are 4 to 6 hours long. Sometimes long hauling is actually a lot quicker than waiting for the local market. Let's talk a little bit about the truck types. So tank wagons, like I said, are these shorter straight trucks, holds about 4,500 gallons of product, typically 4 compartments. So we can bring down gas, clear diesel, red diesel, whatever you may need, different octanes if you have that need. We can carry DEF on a lot of these trucks. So we are literally a one-stop shop. When that truck hits your yard, it can fill anything. It can fill your employee vehicles if you so choose to offer that service to your employees so that they have fuel to get back and forth to work. We can fuel your company assets, backup generators, gas cans, small generators, right? Whatever the need is, those small trucks are nimble. They're easily able to get in and out of tight areas, and it's not something that you would want to try to maneuver a transport truck with. The transports we use in a different capacity. Now, if you've got big 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 gallon tanks, perfect solution, right? We can probably cut the tank wagon out. But my guess is you're gonna have some small applications, and you might wanna consider those as well, because even if you're running off a backyard tank, you may not have a way to get it from your backyard tank to your generator, right? And so that's where those smaller trucks come into play. But these trucks, typically what we use is we actually kind of pair them with the small trucks. So if I've got 2 or 3 or 4 tank wagons running around to all your locations, filling up your equipment, I don't want to take those off your location and basically have downtime for you, right, where you're not getting fuel. I want those trucks working for you. So what we end up doing is we take the transport trucks, we run them to the terminals to load fuel, and for every transport that comes back, I can load 2 tank wagons. So now I've just resupplied that 7,500 gallon truck into 2 4,500 gallon trucks, and they can then continue to work for you. So it's a way to keep it continually operational versus sending those tank wagons to the terminal. They're waiting 4 or 6 hours, whatever it takes them to load, plus drive time, and they're off your location for 8 hours of the workday. Well, that's not helpful for you, because most of these applications, the way we set it up is we pull that truck up on your site, we reel out the hoses, and we kind of do an assembly line of either vehicles, passenger vehicles, generators that can be portable, kind of coming through as a mobile retail station, if you will. So pairing these options together plus a strategic supply source really does provide you that redundancy in your business to know that 100% I've got it on lock. That truck is mine. Nobody else can book that truck, because I'll tell you what happens after a hurricane hits in my world. My phone starts blowing up. And it's every customer under the sun, and they all want trucks because all the local carriers are at capacity. They're doing their darndest to get back up and running, but they're a little bit crippled as well. They're dealing with their families, right? Houses that are flooded, the whole shebang. So we get a ton of calls. Well, supply and demand, right? All these trucks, for one, the price gets jacked up immediately in the heat of the moment. So you're going to end up spending more, right, if you wait to try to purchase an asset during the event. But also, trucks get very thin. Our industry doesn't have a lot of extra trucks sitting around. These are $400,000 assets. Nobody wants to buy one and just put it in the corner waiting for a rainy day, if you will. So these are trucks that have to be pulled off of their local routes and sent down. And companies can only afford to take a certain percentage out of their fleet and still remain operational for their day-to-day business, because nobody wants to lose their local customers to go provide service down to an impacted area. So it's very important to look at this and consider, one, the cost to your business if you do have operational downtime, and two, the increased costs you may pay if you don't lock these up prior to the hurricane season and prior to the storms hitting. So when you work with Mansfield, we do kind of a deep dive analysis with you. We're going to map your locations. We're going to look at how far they are from the coastal area. We're going to look to see how close they are to resupply points. We're going to come up with the plan we want to enact. It may change slightly in the heat of the moment depending upon what happens, but we're going to craft the plan best we can so that when you call us and you say go, we all know what's about to happen, right? And that's all documented down. Further, we like to look at what other customers are in the region. I mentioned data centers earlier and how much fuel they burn, right? And how much they're going to suck up from a capacity standpoint on the trucks and the supply. And so we like to look at these maps and say, okay, well, if a storm hits in this area and your business is also in that area, who also might be trying to flood the terminals to get product, right? Who might also be calling on trucks? It just allows us to be a little bit more prepared and understand what's about to happen. So with that said, 2025 looks to be an average hurricane season on the predictions so far, but don't sleep on that. We never know what's going to actually happen. But 15 named, 7 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes. So, it can still cause major damage, major operational strain. So don't wait, right, to think about your fuel plan for your business. So a couple case studies. I've kind of talked about a few of these, or one of these already with the Colonial pipeline hack. But, back in 2021, Colonial got hacked, pipeline shut down. We were going to end up running 27 dedicated assets across 60 customers to keep operations running. So from parcel carriers to trash recycling, whatever it may be, we can service it all. In Winter Storm Uri, going back to the Texas conversation and the grid going down there, in 21, we had 40 LTL and FTL carriers hauling 13 million gallons, right, across 400 different delivery assets. So our depth, when I talked about in the beginning, the size of our network, that's the big benefit to Mansfield. We have a ton of redundancy, which only benefits you more. And then in May 2022, from just a pure supply perspective, because we can work with every major supplier out there and put strategic reserves in place and inventory, we had 14 million gallons of reserved inventory for our customers so that they were supported even though times were tight in that marketplace. So pairing up with Mansfield, we've got a long history, we have a lot of depth of knowledge, and we have a lot of depth of partners that allow us to be successful. So that said, let's talk. I'll open this up for Q&A, but yeah, question in the back. So the question was, do we provide SLAs for the largest percent of our customer base? And I assume you're talking about SLAs in terms of response time. Yes, but what in the service level agreement are you looking for? Yes, exactly. Yes, we do, 100%. He was looking for a guarantee of a delivery within a certain time frame, and absolutely that's the first part of the conversation, right? When do you need our trucks to be there? Right, and where do you need them to be? Because that's going to be determined where I put that truck on retainer, right? Because if you need it to be there in 8 hours, I sure as heck can't take it from a 12-hour drive away, right? That's not going to work. So absolutely. Any other questions?
Knowing that Florida has a lot of flood during hurricanes, and probably the hurricane passed, but a lot of streets are flooded. What is your game plan in this kind of situation to deliver your service?
Yeah, great question. So the question is, there's a lot of flooding in hurricanes. What's our game plan to get around the flooding? And unfortunately, just as your business would be impacted by that, our trucks would be impacted by that too. So my guess is if you're flooded in, you're probably not working yet. And so typically we wait for that flood water to recede. Our trucks stay on standby on dry land, and then as soon as they can access your location, they're there. But they're already in market, they're just staged close by, is how we handle that. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we do those on a case by case. The question was, do we have agreements with first responders to get access to areas first for hospitals and such to make sure that our trucks can get through? We do work with local government entities. I'm actually doing one up in Cheyenne, Wyoming right now to try to get past on, snow closures and things like that. So we work that in conjunction with our customer through that negotiation process of the deal, right? And try to make sure that we have some way to do that. I mean, we're not always going to be able to get through, right? But if it is for a first responder, then we work with the local entities to try to get escorts through those road closures, or work with local tree companies to try to get access, right, if there's downed trees and power lines and all that. So there's not like a canned solution for that, unfortunately. Ahead of time, we would put those in place. I don't have anybody today on the program that has that need. Yep. Do you have one? Yeah.
So you roll this truck, yard your trucks, put them in a specific area. The customer decides he needs to fill his work trucks or the foliage trucks.
Mm-hmm.
That truck's going to sit there 24, 48, 30 seconds. Anybody with the driver? I'm assuming the driver does everything. Hudson does everything.
He does.
Any relief for? Can I disappear for a while?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, your truck's sitting on location. Obviously, he can't work 24 hours a day, right? So does he disappear at some points? Yes, these are human beings. They have to sleep, right?
For him?
We can, yes. So that's up to customer preference. So if you come to us and you say, I need that truck pumping 24/7, we'll put 2 drivers in the truck, right? And they'll run 12-hour shifts.
The noise that would come out of a client paying for that truck, they got people sitting there, can't get gas out.
Exactly. Yes.
It's not even worth
Right.
having.
Exactly. Yep. So it depends on the customer operation, right? Some customers say, hey, if you can have them here for 16 hours during the daytime hours, that works for us. We're not fueling at night. We're sending all of our employees home. Some of them say, no, I need that guy pumping 24/7. So we send a dual team of drivers and they take shifts, right? And these drivers, they love to work. I mean, they love this stuff. They're coming down, they're helping people. They get a lot of gratification out of it. Frankly, they get a little bit pissed off at us when we don't have them busy enough. So if a customer doesn't have a lot of action happening, they're like, can I do something else? So they want to work. And so, yeah, that's absolutely a solution we have. Yes, sir. I don't have, the question is, do we have any commercial marine relationships? So another sector of our business, Mansfield Service Partner, does a lot of marine work. But I don't have anything on the emergency response side right now for marine, but I have plenty of Coast Guard certified carriers that can do over the water fueling and handle the marine sector. So if that's a need, we certainly can handle that. Yep.
Roads are closed, roads panhandle to the
Yeah.
neighbors.
Yeah. There's been a lot of, if roads are closed, you could obviously use barges to get around. There has been a lot of that. I mean, there's been tons of fuel trucks that have been barged out to Puerto Rico and Cuba and other, countries that obviously have these major catastrophes and don't have enough on island from an infrastructure perspective. So yeah, that's definitely something. I do have a few partners that have high water vehicles, military trucks, right? Things like that. I don't advertise it widely because it's a minute amount of trucks, right? But we do have access to that if that's a need. We also have potable water, which is another big need that has come up, and a ton of our carrier partners have gotten into that service as of late. I appreciate your time today.